everybody, and welcome back to the Turn the Tassel Show. My name is Stephen Ampersand. I'm your host, and as always, we're here to help you and the people you love get to and through the college, university, or the trade schools earlier on time with minimum to no debt. We are in part 4 of our 5-part series on the, I hate to say it, our C3 campaign, which is the college completion crisis. And I sighed because, it can be disheartening. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you see how few people are actually completing and how much debt they're going into in the process, and ultimately what that does, not just for their lives, but what it does for the lives of the people that they love and are in relationship with, what it does for their family tree, for generations after them that are coming after them, that ultimately are fighting an uphill battle once it's their turn because of decisions that we're making as young people that our government is allowing young people to make. Fiscal decisions that they can't bankrupt their way out of, that they can't charge off. It's immoral, in my personal opinion, to put young people in this position and then later on find out that the investment that they told was going to pay off, life intervenes, what have you, and now they can't. And now, what are you going to do? How do you pay off the debt? And how do you do that without the credential? And then still, even with the credential statistics, we've seen the data, most people aren't even using the credential they get when they get into the workforce. How many baristas do we know that are holding master's degrees? I mean, this is a disaster. It really is messed up. So we're going to continue our series here on completion and why it's so important. And, this video is about 10 minutes long, so we'll jump right into it. But I'm just going to say up front, you need a plan. You need a plan. Get a plan together so that when you're going to college, if you're going to university, even if you're going to trade schools, have a plan in place so that when life interrupts you, because life has a way of doing that, you don't get knocked off and derailed. The pandemic in particular forced a lot of people to withdraw. And once you stop out and withdraw, it is so difficult to get back, especially if you borrowed money and you've gone into repayment. And God forbid if you've gone to repayment and your loans are going to default. And now you can't even get back in and use even grant aid because you have an obligation to the government. And usually you also have an obligation to the school because if you don't withdraw at the right time, go back and look at our content on return of Title IV calculations, you'll see that you can still owe the government and the school because school maybe had to prorate and send back some of the money you didn't earn because you didn't stay the whole time. Nightmare. All right, without further ado, let's go and cut to camera number 2.
The coronavirus pandemic has created a lot of economic uncertainty that has put many college students in a challenging position. Students pivoted toward online learning while experiencing job losses and changes in family finances. And campus closures due to COVID, like here at Chapman University, left some students without the resources necessary to earn their degrees, including affordable housing. Now, a study by Gallup shows nearly half of U.S. college students say their anticipated graduation date may be pushed back.
Yeah. When COVID happened, I was homeless and I didn't have access to anything, no access to a computer, a bathroom, because everything was closed.
I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with my mom. It's kind of hard to do school, have a social life, work, all in the same 1 bedroom. I was supposed to graduate next year, 2022. Probably won't graduate until 2023, maybe 2024.
For some students who didn't have a lot in savings, the pandemic made their financial standing worse. According to a survey by One Class, more than half of college students say they can no longer afford their tuition tab.
My mom wasn't able to help me. We don't really have much saved up, so it doesn't make sense financially to go to college during the pandemic. I was always terrified of pushing my graduation date. I felt like I wasn't making the right choice. I was talking to my mom about it, and I was like, what if this is like the choice that like ruins my life?
I'm 24. I've been in college since 2014, and so I've already had my fair share of delays with my education for many different reasons. To figure everything out, to finally come to a place where you feel like you have a strong grip, strong motivation, for it to come crashing down again from a pandemic, it's just like wow.
The same report by one class found that half of all undergraduates said they need to figure out a new way to pay for school. Of those students finding means to pay for college, many ended up unemployed due to the pandemic. Other students, like Tristan Wilkerson, quit their jobs as frontline workers in fear of putting their families at risk of contracting the virus.
And my skill set didn't have the privilege to work from a computer, or at least I didn't know about any opportunities for that. All of my jobs, all the ways I made money was going out into the public.
Not everyone can do remote work.
Doing EMT work or whatever side hustle job, all the things college students do to get by.
Some students continued as essential workers, but couldn't afford housing. De La Cruz was one of them. During the pandemic, she was an international business student at FIU, working over 60 hours a week at an Amazon warehouse, but she didn't have a home to go back to at the end of the day.
My friends, they was willing to help me, but with COVID, I couldn't go to their houses because I was working in an environment where every day somebody new was positive for COVID.
A study by the Economic and Social Research shows that students of color and low-income students are more likely to say they're planning to take fewer classes in the fall, likely delaying their graduation. Financial hardships caused by the pandemic are exacerbating inequalities in higher education. Just 3% of white students plan to take fewer classes in the fall because of the pandemic, while nearly 30% of Asian American, almost 25% of Latino, 7% of Black students, and 18% of the lowest income students said they expect to take a lighter course load during the fall semester of 2020.
College was always a struggle for first-gen low-income students, even before the pandemic. But if you're the first in your family to pursue a higher education, if you're coming from a lower socioeconomic status, you're probably not just focusing on school. You're working to support your family, you're paying the bills, you're paying your own tuition.
Latino, Asian American, and low-income students are far more likely to report more family care responsibilities resulting from COVID-19 too.
Fact.
My little brothers and stuff, they're used to going to school every day. Being their older brother, you want to make sure they're getting what they need. A lot of older siblings can relate to having to step up and, do things when the parent can't, and it's a single parent household. So you shoulder a lot of certain responsibilities.
And as students take time off to support their families, they begin to question whether completing a college education is worth it. Education and workforce professor Dr. Anthony Carnival believed that more students would leave four-year institutions to transfer.
It's not worth it if you're going to go into this exorbitant amount of debt to do so, because like this is demonstrated, you don't know what's going to happen. Look at what's going on in Ukraine right now with Russia. If we get into a full-scale World War III, you think that's not going to disrupt college university? You think that that's not going to interrupt the economies and everything else? You can't predict what's going to come down the pike. And so going into these exorbitant amounts of debt with all this uncertainty, especially, is just unwise. Let's go back to it.
To community colleges. Instead, his research found that some students are completely dropping out.
Our research, based on prior data, suggested to us that there would be a huge drop-off in college going. That was clear. But that one thing that would happen is that people would go to college closer to home, and that they would go to college in community colleges. That absolutely did not happen. We were dead wrong.
Yeah, because the community colleges closed too.
That's where we're seeing the largest drop-offs in attendance, which is somewhat counterintuitive.
Even though we know the value of higher education is really, really important, having cash in your pocket sometimes in the moment is what wins that conversation. And so many students we know.
Yeah, stop the show for a second. Okay, and I'm trying to get this mic to behave. I don't know why I always have problems with this mic. Stop the show. So, if you have to decide feed my kids, feed myself, keep a roof over our heads, which is increasingly hard. For crying out loud, put gas in the car at $6 a gallon, or pay your tuition and fees, hoping that you'll be among the 41% that actually graduates in 6 years. That is not a difficult calculus for anyone to make, and it doesn't matter what your aptitude is with mathematics. That's a simple process to think that through. People are going to prioritize, and they should. So the best thing you can do is find a educational program at a price point that can be afforded, ideally out of pocket with hard work. And yeah, if a pandemic comes and forces everybody to stop working, then you're going to have to pause. Absolutely. But how many students would have benefited from knowing what we know here at Turn the Tassel? Knowing that if they wait until they get past the 60% date of the term, that whatever money that they may have borrowed, hopefully they didn't, but whatever money they may have borrowed would have been considered 100% earned after 60% of the term, right? So what if they held their withdrawal until after that date? Now, at least they don't owe the school money, which would prevent them from registering, which would prevent them from getting their transcripts and transferring somewhere else. But see, you don't know what you don't know. And that's why Turn the Tassel Consulting Group is here to help you. Let's go back to it.
Decided to stay working.
But experts advise that having a college degree is still the best, most direct path to a good career with higher earnings.
Across the board, college is worth it. Folks who get a college degree, whether that's an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, or a post-baccalaureate degree, consistently have higher earnings, are more likely to get a job than their peers who don't.
I just have to say, I find it interesting that every time that point comes up, that talking point, it's always a faculty person and or a professor making that point. Now, I'm not going to make too general a statement here, but still, it's a sweeping generalization. Faculty members, many of whom enjoy the wonderful, for them, benefit of tenure, are de facto incentivized to tell you that it's worth it because they, and all employees, but they in particular, benefit when you show up and pay that money. The number one expense that any operation has is salaries and fringe benefits. And faculty who are brilliant, many, and hold terminal degrees, many, commonly earn 6 figures or more. Well, not more. Commonly earn 6 figures. And I'm talking about their salary, not including any profit they might make on books that they write and or textbooks they make that then get required to be required reading for a particular course. They make really good money. So I always put an asterisk next to this talking point, particularly when it comes from faculty, because many of them don't know what it's like to be in poverty or working middle class and understand some of these kitchen table realities that the rest of the world has to confront. They're not worried about putting gas in their car. Many of them may have electric vehicles, as expensive as they are, because they can afford that. They're not worried about putting groceries on their table. Many of our faculty persons have never missed a meal that they didn't intend to by way of fasting. You see, I'm somebody who has. Now, I wasn't fasting. We were homeless. We were poor. And I remember my mom literally taking $5, putting $2.50 into the gas tank and using the other $2 to buy bread. And sometimes that's all we had. And at that time, $2 actually got you a couple of gallons, 3 to 4 gallons of gasoline. You can't get a single gallon of gasoline today for less than $5. So we got to stop the cap on talking points like this. All right, back to it, off my soapbox.
An educated citizen. So beyond the value of college in terms of earnings, there's also something about being well-read, well-spoken, and a well-reasoned person who can engage in critical thinking, has strong communication skills, and can participate in our democratic society.
In fact, delaying or taking time off college may incur even more debt and end up costing students more in the long run.
College graduates specifically make more money than non-college graduates. And over a lifetime, that can really add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars over the course of a lifetime.
So the longer a student's in college trying to get to graduation, the longer it takes for that generational change to happen, supporting their family members, bringing up their own communities.
For 41%.
In January, the U.S. Department of Education made more than $21 billion available to institutions of higher education to support students during the pandemic. Colleges and universities across the nation, like University of California, Irvine and University of North Carolina, have used these funds to implement emergency grant opportunities, housing assistance, and academic support programs.
The most important thing a university can do is make sure the student has the academic support and not only financial, but also academic services to ensure that student has the resources they need to kind of move forward and persist and graduate.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it there. We'll, as always, I will put the link to this video in the description for the episode. But suffice it to say, it's not enough just to get people to college. And at 41% completion nationally across all sectors of higher education is failing miserably. They're failing, but they don't care that they're failing because their bottom line still improve as long as you show up and keep funneling in that federal money that has opened the door for inflated costs and inflated job markets that require higher credentials for jobs that don't really need them. So it's incumbent upon you to make sure that if you're going to go the route of higher education, and I don't care what sector, it's incumbent upon you to look out for yourself and or the people that you love to help them to get to and through earlier on time with minimum to no debt. And that is why we're here at Turn the Task Consulting Group, because I recognized a long time ago that colleges, universities just are not equipped to help people to complete. A 41% completion percentage is all you need to see. And that's after a 6-year cohort for a 4-year degree. F. That's an F. Contact us here at Turn Task Consulting Group. turningtask@gmail.com, 484-574-1866. Subject line for either. I need a plan. We will reach out to you. We will schedule a free consultation and get a plan in place for you that will work so you can get to and through earlier on time with minimum or no debt. I'm Stephen Ampersand, and this is the Turner Tasker Show.